Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Phoenix and watched the stars change color as his ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. After 3 months of traveling through space, they had finally reached their destination. The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in front of them like a small moon made of metal and crystal. "Captain, we're getting a signal from the station," said his communications officer. "They're welcoming us and giving us permission to dock." Jake nodded and felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for since they first learned to travel between stars. Today, humans would meet the Galactic Council for the first time. Today, they would ask to join the most powerful organization in the galaxy. "Take us in slowly," Jake ordered. "I want everyone to see this." Behind him, Chief Science Officer Lisa Park was already at her instruments, scanning everything she could. Her eyes were bright with excitement as she watched the readings flow across her screens. "Jake, this is incredible. I'm detecting at least 12 different types of alien technology. Some of these energy signatures are completely unknown to our science." Ambassador Robert Kane walked onto the bridge wearing his best diplomatic uniform. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. "Captain Morrison, are we ready to make history?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Jake replied. "Lisa, what can you tell us about the station?" Lisa looked up from her instruments. "It's huge, maybe 50 times bigger than our largest space station. I'm reading massive power sources, artificial gravity systems, and what looks like entire cities inside the structure. The technology here is thousands of years ahead of ours." The Phoenix slowly moved toward the docking bay, passing other ships from across the galaxy. Jake saw vessels made of living crystal, others that seemed to be made of pure energy, and some that hurt to look at directly. Each ship was completely different, representing the various species that belonged to the Council. "Amazing," whispered Kane. 12 different alien civilizations, all working together in peace. If we can join them, humanity will have access to technologies that could solve every problem on Earth. As they docked, Jake felt a mixture of hope and nervousness. Earth was running out of resources. The population was growing faster than they could produce food and energy. The Council's advanced technology could save billions of lives. But first, they had to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. The docking bay was filled with strange sights and sounds. Aliens of every shape and size moved about their business. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others floated through the air, and a few seemed to be made of gas or light. Jake had seen pictures and videos, but nothing had prepared him for actually being surrounded by so many different forms of life. A tall, thin alien with large eyes approached them. Its skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer in the light. "Welcome, humans," it said, speaking perfect English directly into their minds. "I am Chancellor Zexhai of the Zilani. We have been expecting you." Ambassador Kane stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Chancellor, it is an honor to meet you. I am Ambassador Robert Kane, representing the government of Earth. We come seeking friendship and hoping to join your council." The Chancellor's large eyes studied them carefully. "Your species is young, but you have achieved faster-than-light travel remarkably quickly. This shows promise. Come, the other council members are waiting to meet you." They followed the Chancellor through corridors filled with wonders. The walls seemed to be alive, pulsing with soft light. Plants from a dozen different worlds grew, in perfect harmony. The air smelled of flowers and something else Jake couldn't identify. In the great meeting chamber, they met the other council members. There was Prime Shard Krelthak, a being made entirely of crystal that spoke in musical tones. The Vorthak Collective appeared as a swirling cloud of gas that somehow had a voice. 9 other species were represented, each more amazing than the last. "Humans," said Prime Shard Krelthak, its crystalline body ringing like bells. "We have watched your species with interest. You have grown from primitive creatures to space travelers in just a few thousand years. Most impressive." Ambassador Kane smiled. "We hope to continue growing and learning. Earth has much to offer the galaxy. We have discovered new forms of fusion, energy, and our planet is rich in rare minerals that other worlds need." While the diplomats talked, Lisa Park quietly scanned the room with her instruments. Something was bothering her, but she couldn't put her finger on what it was. The readings from the council members seemed strange, as if they were hiding something. The meeting continued for hours. The council members asked many questions about Earth's resources, population, and technology. They seemed especially interested in humanity's fusion reactors and the location of Earth's mining operations. "Your proposal is interesting," Chancellor Zexhai finally said. "However, joining the council is not a decision we make lightly. We must consider the impact on all member species. We will need time to discuss this among ourselves." "Ambassador?" Kane nodded. "Of course, we understand the importance of such a decision. We are prepared to wait for your answer." That night, as they rested in quarters provided by the council, Lisa Park couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her scanner readings. Something was wrong, but she needed more information to figure out what it was. She quietly left her room and made her way to the observation deck. The station was beautiful at night, with lights twinkling like stars throughout its structure. But Lisa wasn't looking at the pretty lights. She was using her portable scanner to examine the council's ships more closely. What she found made her blood run cold. The ships weren't just old, they were ancient. But more than that, they showed signs of desperate repairs, as if their owners were struggling to keep them working. The energy readings suggested that the council's technology was failing. Lisa worked through the night, scanning everything she could reach. By morning, she had discovered the horrible truth. The 12 council species weren't thriving civilizations at all. They were dying races whose worlds were used up and empty. Their populations were shrinking, their technology was breaking down, and they were desperately looking for new resources to keep their societies alive. And they had found those resources on Earth. Lisa ran to find Captain Morrison, but she was too late. Council security forces were already moving through the station. She heard energy weapons firing and saw aliens in battle armor heading toward the human quarters. "Captain Morrison," she called into her communicator. "It's a trap. They don't want to help us. They want to take Earth for themselves." Jake's voice came back, full of static and the sound of fighting. "Lisa, get to the ship. Kane is dead. They're trying to capture us." Lisa ran through the corridors as alarms began to sound throughout the station. Behind her, she could hear the heavy footsteps of council soldiers. She reached the docking bay just as Jake and the surviving crew members were fighting their way to the Phoenix. "Go, go, go!" Jake shouted as they scrambled aboard their ship. The Phoenix's engines roared to life, and they pulled away from the station just as council warships began to surround them. "Get us out of here," Jake ordered, but he knew they couldn't outrun the alien ships. Instead, he opened a communication channel to Earth. "This is Captain Morrison of the Phoenix. Emergency message for Earth Command. The Council has betrayed us. They are not friends. They are coming to take our world. Repeat, the Council is coming to take everything. Prepare for war." The Phoenix exploded in a flash of light as the Council warships opened fire, but the message had been sent. Earth would know the truth, and humanity would be ready to fight for their survival. The emergency message from Captain Morrison reached Earth Command at 3 a.m. General Chris Tucker was pulled from his bed by the sound of alarms echoing through the military base. He ran to the command center still wearing his pajamas, his heart pounding as he listened to Morrison's final transmission. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice shaking. The recording crackled through the speakers one more time. "The Council has betrayed us. They are not friends. They are coming to take our world. Repeat, the Council is coming to take everything. Prepare for war." President Helen Carter arrived 30 minutes later, her face pale but determined. She had been dreaming of her grandchildren when the call came. Now she might never see them. "Grow up." "How long do we have?" she asked. General Tucker pulled up star charts on the main screen. "Based on their technology, maybe 3 months, maybe less." "And our chances?" The general looked at the numbers on his screen. Earth had 12 military starships. The reports from the Phoenix had mentioned hundreds of council vessels at Nexus Prime alone. "We can't win a straight fight, ma'am, but we might be able to make them pay a heavy price." Across the planet, governments worked together like never before. Every nation put aside their differences and focused on one goal: survival. Factories that had been making cars and computers suddenly started building weapons and armor. Scientists who had been working on peaceful projects began designing new ways to fight alien invaders. Dr. Alex Norton was one of those scientists. He had spent his career studying fusion energy, trying to create clean power for Earth's cities. Now he was designing the most dangerous weapon in human history. The Genesis Protocol, he explained to President Carter and her advisors. We use our fusion technology to create a network of hidden stations throughout the solar system. Each station draws power directly from the sun itself. What would these stations do? Asked the president. Dr. Norton's hands shook as he pulled up his plans. They would create an artificial wormhole large enough to swallow our entire planet. We could move Earth to a different part of the galaxy, somewhere the Council can't follow. General Tucker frowned. What's the catch? The energy drain would dim our sun for thousands of years. Earth would freeze. Most of our population would die. But some might survive long enough to find a way to restart our civilization. President Carter closed her eyes. It was the hardest decision any leader had ever faced. Save a few million people by sacrificing billions, or let everyone die. Fighting. How long would you need to build these stations? 2 months if we use every resource on Earth. Do it, while Dr. Norton worked on his secret project. The rest of humanity prepared for war. Captain Nina Walsh commanded the battleship Victory, Earth's most powerful warship. She had been a cargo pilot just 6 months ago, but the military was promoting anyone with space experience. We can't match their firepower, she told her crew, but we can be smarter. We know this solar system better than they do. We use that advantage. Colonel Pete Johnson was in charge of defending Mars Colony. The Red Planet had become humanity's backup home, with over 2 million people living in underground cities. If Earth fell, Mars would be humanity's last hope. We've got defensive satellites around the planet and missile bases in the asteroid belt, he reported to Earth Command. We can hold them off for a while, but not forever. The Council fleet arrived, exactly 3 months after Morrison's warning. Their ships came out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, thousands of vessels that blocked out the stars. The alien commanders expected to find a frightened planet ready to surrender. Instead, they found humans ready to fight. The first battle happened near Neptune. Captain Walsh led a squadron of human ships in a surprise attack on the Council's scout vessels. Her ships were smaller and weaker, but they moved like angry wasps, striking fast and disappearing before the aliens could respond. Target their engines, Walsh ordered over the radio. We don't need to destroy them, just slow them down. The human ships danced through space, using their knowledge of the solar system's gravitational fields to confuse the alien pilots. They hid behind asteroids and used the planet's magnetic fields to mask their movements. But the Council had been conquering worlds for millions of years. They learned from their mistakes and adapted their tactics. Slowly, the human ships began to fall. The battle moved inward toward Mars. Colonel Johnson's defenses put up a fierce fight, destroying dozens of Council ships with hidden missile bases and orbital weapons. But there were too many enemy vessels. After 2 weeks of fighting, Mars Colony sent its final message. This is Mars Colony to Earth Command. We can't hold them anymore. They're breaking through our defenses. Tell my family I love them. The transmission cut to static as the Council bombardment began. Earth itself was humanity's final stand. Every remaining ship formed a defensive line around the planet. Civilians in the cities looked up at the night sky and saw flashes of light as the battle raged in space. Captain Walsh's ship was one of the last to fall. As Council fighters swarmed around the Victory, she made one final attack run on their command ship. Her vessel's fusion reactor overloaded just as she reached the alien flagship, taking both ships with her in a massive explosion. But even acts of heroism couldn't change the outcome. One by one, Earth's defenders were destroyed. Council ships moved into orbit around the planet, preparing for the final assault. That's when Dr. Norton activated the Genesis Protocol. Hidden stations throughout the solar system came online all at once. They drew massive amounts of energy from the sun, causing it to flicker and dim. Space itself began to twist and bend as the artificial wormhole formed. "All stations report ready," Dr. Norton said, his voice barely a whisper. "President Carter, the decision is yours." President Carter looked out the window of her command bunker. She could see council ships landing in the distance, alien soldiers beginning their invasion of Earth. In a few hours, humanity would be slaves, or worse. "Do it," she said. The wormhole opened like a mouth in space, swallowing Earth and its moon in one massive gulp. The planet disappeared from its orbit, leaving the Council fleet alone in an empty solar system. Earth reappeared in a distant part of the galaxy, far from any known star systems, but the cost was terrible. The sun, drained of its energy, became a dim red dwarf. Ice began to form on the oceans. Snow fell in the tropics. President Carter, now old and sick from the stress of war, spoke to the survivors over the global communication system. "We have bought ourselves time," she said, "but at a terrible price. Our sun is dying, our world is growing cold. Yet we live, and while we live, we remember. Someday, our children will return to make the Council pay for what they have done." Humanity began its long retreat underground. Cities were carved from solid rock warmed by the heat from Earth's core. The population, forced to adapt to harsh conditions, grew stronger and more determined with each generation. The survivors never forgot the betrayal. They told their children stories of the war, of the heroes who died defending Earth, and of the aliens who had tried to steal their world. Each new generation grew up knowing that someday, humanity would have its revenge. In the deep caves beneath the frozen surface, human civilization rebuilt itself. They had lost almost everything, but they had gained something precious, the knowledge that they could survive anything the universe threw at them. Commander Luke Peterson stood in the observation deck of the starship Vengeance and looked out at the stars that had been humanity's home for 300,000 years. He was 7 feet tall, with muscles that could bend steel and bones that could survive in the vacuum of space. His eyes, like those of all modern humans, could see in complete darkness and detect heat signatures from miles away. This was what humanity had become during their long exile. The harsh conditions on frozen Earth had forced them to change, to become stronger and smarter than their ancestors ever imagined. The original survivors who had lived through the Council's betrayal were long dead, but their descendants carried on their mission of survival and revenge. "Commander," said his communications officer, "we're receiving a signal from the exploration ship Pioneer. Captain Danny Brooks says they've found something important." Luke nodded. For decades, human ships had been exploring their new region of space, mapping star systems and looking for resources. Most of what they found were empty worlds and dead solar systems. But sometimes they discovered things that changed everything. "Put him through," Luke ordered. Captain Brooks appeared on the main screen, his face excited, but also nervous. "Commander, Peterson, you need to see this. We found ruins on the 4th planet of the Kepler system. They're not natural formations. Someone built them." Luke felt his heart speed up. In all their years of exploration, humans had never found signs of other intelligent life in their new home. "What kind of ruins?" "A city, sir. Maybe an entire civilization. But here's the strange part. The architecture looks familiar. It reminds me of the Council buildings we saw in the old records from the Phoenix." Luke was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Are there any life signs?" "No, sir. The planet is completely dead. But Commander, there's something else. We've detected massive energy readings coming from underground. Something is still active down there. Hold your position, Captain. We're coming to investigate." Luke turned to his crew. The bridge of the Vengeance was filled with humans who represented the best of their evolved species. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell could process information faster than the old Earth computers. Engineer Bob Taylor could repair complex machinery with just his hands and enhanced senses. Navigator Carol Reed could plot courses through space using calculations that would have taken teams of scientists in the old days. "Set course for the Kepler system," Luke ordered, "and send word to Dr. Grace Williams. Tell her we might have found something she wants to see. Dr. Williams was the head of humanity's Genetic Enhancement Division. She had spent her life studying how humans had changed during their exile and finding ways to make them even stronger. Her research into the human mind had unlocked abilities that seemed impossible to their ancestors. When they reached the dead planet, Luke led an exploration team to the surface. The ruins were massive, covering hundreds of square miles. The buildings were made from the same crystalline materials the Council used, but they were broken and worn down by millions of years of weather. "This place has been dead for a very long time," said Dr. Williams as she scanned the ruins with her instruments. "But you're right about the energy readings. There's definitely something active underground." They found the entrance to the underground complex hidden beneath a collapsed tower. Luke's enhanced strength allowed him to move the debris that would have required heavy machinery in the old days. Below ground, they discovered corridors filled with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "These passages lead deep into the planet's core," said Lieutenant Mitchell, consulting her scanner. "The energy source is about 2 miles down." As they traveled deeper, they began to find more signs of the civilization that had once lived here. There were symbols carved into the walls that looked similar to Council writing, but different somehow. Dr. Williams took pictures of everything, her enhanced memory recording details that would help decode the ancient language. At the center of the complex, they found a vast chamber filled with thousands of crystal formations. Each crystal was perfectly clear and pulsed with its own inner light. The energy readings were off the charts. "What are they?" asked Luke. Dr. Williams approached one of the crystals carefully. As she got closer, her enhanced senses detected something amazing. "Commander, these aren't just energy storage devices, they're consciousness containers. Each crystal holds the memories and knowledge of a living being." "You mean there are people trapped in there?" "Not exactly people, but yes. Thousands of them. Maybe millions." She turned to face Luke, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. "This is what's left of an entire civilization. They stored their minds in these crystals before they died." Luke reached out to touch one of the crystals. The moment his enhanced nervous system made contact, his mind was flooded with images and thoughts that weren't his own. He saw a galaxy full of different species all living in peace and cooperation. He saw massive council fleets attacking peaceful worlds. He saw civilizations being destroyed one after another. "They fought the council," he whispered. "This whole species fought against them and lost." Dr. Williams connected her own enhanced mind to another crystal. The experience was overwhelming. She saw the final days of this civilization, how they had tried to unite the galaxy against the Council's tyranny. They had come close to success, but in the end, they were defeated, and their worlds were stripped bare. But most importantly, she learned about the Council's weakness. "Luke," she said, her voice shaking, "the Council species are dying. They've been dying for millions of years, their populations are shrinking, their technology is breaking down. They survive by consuming other civilizations, but each time they do it, they get weaker." Over the following months, Dr. Williams developed a way to safely interface human consciousness with the alien crystals. The process was dangerous, but it allowed humans to absorb the knowledge and memories of the extinct civilization. Commander Peterson was the first to undergo the complete process. His already enhanced mind expanded to contain the scientific knowledge of an entire species. He learned about technologies that made human fusion reactors look like campfires. He discovered mathematical principles that allowed manipulation of space and time itself. Soon, hundreds of humans followed Peterson's example. Each person who connected with the crystals became a living library of advanced knowledge. Engineer Taylor learned how to build machines that could repair themselves. Navigator Reed discovered how to fold space to travel instantly across vast distances. But the most important discovery came from the crystal's historical records. The extinct civilization hadn't been the first to fight the Council. For over 3 million years, the Council had been systematically destroying every species that showed promise. Hundreds of different civilizations had been wiped out, their knowledge stolen, their worlds consumed. "We're not just fighting for revenge anymore," Luke told his crew as they prepared to return to Earth. We're fighting for every species the Council ever destroyed. We carry their memories now. We are their final hope for justice. Admiral Roy Bennett, the commander of humanity's growing fleet, received Peterson's report with grim satisfaction. For 300,000 years, humans had been building ships and weapons in their underground cities. They had been waiting for the right moment to return to the galaxy and face their enemies. Now they knew the Council's true weakness. The alien species were shadows of their former selves, ruling over a galaxy of ghosts through fear and ancient technology. They had grown complacent, believing that no threat could ever challenge their power again. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Send word to all ship commanders," Admiral Bennett ordered. "The time for hiding is over. We return to the galaxy as the champions of every civilization the Council destroyed, and this time we're strong enough to win." Captain Andy Clark watched the planet Kepler 442b grow larger on his ship's viewing screen. 500,000 years ago, this world had been home to 3 million human colonists. Now it was a mining operation run by the Council, its surface stripped bare and its people long dead or enslaved. "All ships report ready, Captain," said his weapons officer. "The Justice and her escort fleet are in position." Andy nodded. He commanded the dreadnought Justice, a ship that would have seemed impossible to the humans who first fled Earth. It was 3 miles long and powered by artificial stars. Its weapons could destroy entire moons, and its shields could withstand the explosion of a sun. "Begin the attack," Andy ordered. The Justice and 50 other human ships appeared in Kepler 442b's atmosphere without warning. They had traveled through folded space, a technology learned from the alien crystals that allowed instant movement across the galaxy. The Council's orbital defenses never saw them coming. Energy beams that could cut through mountains struck the Council space stations. Within minutes, the alien defensive network was reduced to floating debris. The few Council ships that tried to fight back were destroyed before they could send a distress signal. "Landing teams, you are clear to begin the assault," Andy announced. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Stone led the ground forces aboard transport ships that phase-shifted through solid matter. Her soldiers were the result of 500,000 years of human evolution and genetic enhancement. They could survive in the vacuum of space, lift 10 tons with their bare hands, and move faster than the eye could follow. The Council defenders on the planet's surface were a mixture of different alien species, all serving their ancient masters. Most had never seen a human before. The stories of Earth's destruction were ancient history to them, something that had happened so long ago it might as well have been a myth. They were not prepared for what came down from the sky. Beth's soldiers landed like falling stars, their enhanced bodies allowing them to survive impacts that would have killed normal humans. They wore armor made from living metal that adapted to any environment. Their weapons channeled pure energy through crystalline focuses, turning solid matter into superheated gas. "Surrender, and you will not be harmed," Beth announced, her voice carried by speakers that could be heard across the entire continent. "Continue to fight and face the consequences." The Council ground commander was a reptilian creature called a Siktar. His species had served the Council for over 1,000,000 years, crushing rebellions on dozens of worlds. He had never lost a battle, and saw no reason to start now. "Attack," he hissed into his communicator. "Show these primitive humans the power of the Council." The alien soldiers charged forward with weapons that had conquered 1,000 worlds. Energy bolts that could melt steel struck the human lines. Explosive shells that could level buildings detonated among Beth's troops. The humans walked through the bombardment like it was a light rain. Their enhanced bodies shrugged off energy, blasts that would have vaporized their ancestors. Their armor absorbed explosive force and converted it into power for their own weapons. When they returned fire, entire sections of the alien defensive lines simply disappeared. Within an hour, the battle was over. The surviving Council forces threw down their weapons and surrendered. Many of them were crying, unable to understand how their mighty technology had been so easily defeated. The Esktar commander approached Beth Stone with his hands raised. His scaled skin was pale with fear, and his voice shook as he spoke. "What are you?" he whispered. "The humans were destroyed. Long ago. You cannot be real." Beth removed her helmet, revealing a face that was recognizably human but changed by centuries of evolution. Her eyes glowed with inner light, and her skin seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. "We are what you made us," she said. "Every hardship, every death, every moment of suffering and exile forged us into something you could never destroy. We are humanity returned, and we bring justice for all those you have wronged." News of the attack spread across the galaxy faster than the Council could contain it. For the first time in millions of years, one of their worlds had fallen to an enemy. High Chancellor Vexthul, the ancient Zelani, who had personally overseen Earth's destruction, called an emergency meeting of the remaining Council leaders. "This is impossible," declared Prime Shard Krelthak, his crystalline body ringing with agitation. "The humans were eliminated centuries ago. Our records are clear." "Apparently our records were wrong," Vexthul replied, his telepathic voice filled with cold anger. "Somehow some of them survived, but they are still just humans. We will crush them as we crushed their ancestors." The Chancellor was wrong about everything. Humanity was no longer just human, and they were not alone. Admiral Roy Bennett's Grand Fleet emerged from quantum fold space around Nexus Prime itself. 2,000 ships appeared in perfect formation, each one larger and more advanced than anything in the Council's ancient navy. The fleet included vessels from dozens of different designs, built using knowledge absorbed from the crystal libraries of extinct civilizations. The Council's capital world, once thought to be the most protected place in the galaxy, suddenly found itself completely surrounded. Space stations that had defended Nexus Prime for millions of years looked like toys compared to the human dreadnoughts. High Chancellor Vexthul stared at the view screen in his command center, unable to believe what he was seeing. "How many ships do they have?" "Over 2,000 confirmed, my lord," replied his aide, a cybernetic being that served as the Council's information processor. "And sensors indicate they have more fleets moving toward our other core worlds." The Battle of Nexus Prime began when the Council opened fire with their most powerful weapons. Energy beams that could crack continents struck the human fleet. Missiles that could destroy small moons detonated against the alien shields. The humans felt nothing. Their shields, powered by artificial stars and reinforced with technology from a dozen extinct civilizations, absorbed the attack without even flickering. In response, the human fleet fired a single coordinated volley. 300 Council ships were vaporized instantly. The others tried to retreat, but found themselves trapped by human gravity manipulators that held them in place like insects in amber. "This is Admiral Roy Bennett of the Human Restoration Fleet," came a voice that echoed across all communication channels. "High Chancellor Vexthul, you and your council stand accused of genocide against humanity and hundreds of other species. You have one chance to surrender unconditionally." Vexthul's reply was filled with desperate arrogance. "We are the Council. We have ruled this galaxy for millions of years. You cannot threaten us." "You had your chance for peace 500,000 years ago," Bennett responded. "You chose betrayal and genocide instead. Now you face the consequences." The Chancellor made one final, desperate decision. If he could not defeat these returned humans, he would take them with him. "Activate the planet killer," he ordered. "We will destroy Nexus Prime's core and take the entire system with us." The plan might have worked against any normal enemy, but General Luke Peterson and his strike team were already inside the Chancellor's fortress, having phased through solid matter, using abilities that combined genetic enhancement with quantum manipulation technology. Peterson appeared in Vexthul's command chamber like a ghost becoming solid. The ancient alien leader looked up at the human general with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. "How?" Vexthul whispered. "You made us this way," Peterson replied. "Every hardship, every loss, every moment of suffering and exile forged us into something you could never understand or destroy. We are what remains when you take everything from a species and they refuse to die." The confrontation between the human general and the alien chancellor represented more than personal revenge. It was the end of an age of tyranny that had lasted for millions of years. As Peterson's enhanced abilities disabled the planet-killing weapon, Vexthol finally understood the magnitude of what the Council had unleashed through their betrayal. They had not just failed to destroy humanity. They had created their own destroyers. General Luke Peterson stood in the ruins of High Chancellor Vexthol's command center on Nexus Prime. The ancient Zilani leader lay unconscious at his feet, defeated, but still alive. Around them, the once mighty capital of the Galactic Council burned as human forces secured the planet. "General," came a voice through his communicator. "This is Admiral Bennett. We've received surrender signals from 11 of the 12 Council homeworlds. Only the Thrak Empire is still resisting." Luke looked down at the alien who had personally ordered Earth's destruction 500,000 years ago. It would be easy to kill him now, to complete the revenge that humanity had planned for so long. Instead, Luke made a different choice. "Take him alive," he ordered the soldiers entering the chamber, "and treat his wounds. He will face justice but not death." This decision would define everything that came after. Humanity had returned not just for revenge, but for something greater. Dr. Grace Williams led the effort to heal the worlds that the Council had destroyed. Her first stop was Zilani Prime, homeworld of the telepathic species that had welcomed and then betrayed humanity centuries ago. The planet was dying, its purple oceans turned to acid, and its crystal cities crumbling from neglect. "How do we help people who tried to kill us all?" asked Captain Danny Brooks as their ship entered orbit around the poisoned world. "By being better than they were," Grace replied. "By showing the galaxy what real strength looks like, using technology learned from the crystal libraries of extinct civilizations." Grace's teams began the slow work of healing Zilani Prime's damaged ecosystem. They cleaned the poisoned oceans with machines that could break down toxins at the molecular level. They replanted the dead forests with seeds from the ship's biological archives. The surviving Zilani watched in amazement as their world came back to life. Many of them were young, born long after Earth's destruction. They had grown up hearing propaganda about how humans were violent primitives who deserved to be eliminated. Now they saw humans working to save their dying planet. Elder Zexnor, one of the few Zilani old enough to remember the original betrayal, approached Grace as she worked in a restored forest. The alien's large eyes were filled with tears. "Why?" he asked, his telepathic voice filled with confusion. "We destroyed your world. We tried to kill your entire species. Why are you saving us?" Grace looked up from the plant she was tending. "Because that's what makes us different from the Council. You destroyed because you were afraid of dying. We heal because we choose to live." The restoration of Thrak Prime proved more difficult. The crystalline beings existed as a collective consciousness within massive crystal networks that covered their entire planet. When human forces arrived, they found the Thrak had shut down completely rather than face the consequences of their actions. Captain Andy Clark led a specialized team into the heart of the Thrak network, using abilities that combined human intuition with alien technology. They made contact with the collective consciousness. What they found was a species drowning in guilt and despair. The Thrak Collective had stored the memories of every genocide they had helped commit over millions of years. The weight of all those deaths had driven them to the edge of madness. "We cannot live with what we have done," the collective whispered through crystal speakers. "We choose extinction over shame." "You don't get to choose extinction," Andy replied firmly. "The species you helped destroy don't get that choice. You owe it to them to live and remember. You owe it to them to be better." Working with Dr. Williams, Andy's team helped the Thrak Collective process their traumatic memories without being destroyed by them. It was delicate work that took months, but eventually the crystalline beings began to function again. They emerged changed, dedicated to atoning for their ancestors' crimes through service to others. But the greatest discovery came when human scientists began exploring the deepest levels of Nexus Prime. Hidden beneath the Council's capital was a vast archive that contained something incredible. The preserved consciousness patterns of every species the Council had ever destroyed. "There are millions of them," Dr. Williams reported to Admiral Bennett. Every civilization that the Council eliminated over the past 3 million years, their minds, their memories, their entire cultures stored in quantum matrices. Are they alive? Bennett asked. In a way, yes, they're aware but trapped. The Council kept them as trophies, studying them to perfect their methods of conquest. The discovery changed everything humanity had planned. This was no longer just about justice for Earth's betrayal. This was about resurrection on a scale never before imagined. Using their advanced technology, human scientists began the greatest revival project in galactic history. One by one, extinct species were given new form. Some were restored to cloned biological bodies. Others chose synthetic vessels, and a few existed as pure energy beings. The first species to be revived was the Kyrian Republic, the same civilization whose crystal libraries had taught humanity so much. When the first Kyrian opened her eyes in a new body after 2 million years of death, she looked up at the human scientists and whispered, "You remembered us." More species followed. The artistic Talvani, who had been destroyed for creating beauty that outshone Council propaganda. The scholarly Nexari, eliminated because their questions threatened Council authority. The peaceful Gorvani, wiped out simply because the Council wanted their worlds. Each restored civilization reacted with wonder and gratitude. They offered their knowledge freely to humanity, adding their sciences and cultures to the growing alliance. The galaxy that had been empty and dying suddenly teemed with life again. General Peterson, now bearing the title of Galactic Coordinator, stood before the first grand assembly of restored species. Representatives from over 300 civilizations filled the rebuilt chambers of Nexus Prime. Many of them were species that had been extinct for millions of years, now given a second chance at life. "We did not return for conquest," Peterson declared, his words carried across the galaxy by quantum communication networks. "We returned for justice. That justice is now served. The galaxy belongs not to any single species but to all who call it home." He paused, looking out at the diverse crowd of beings who had once been thought lost forever. "Humanity will guard against the rise of another council, but we will not rule. We have learned that true strength comes not from domination, but from diversity. Let us build a galaxy where no species fears for its survival, where knowledge is shared freely and where the strong protect the weak." The final act of humanity's return was bringing Earth itself back to its original home. Using quantum manipulation, technology that surpassed even their previous achievements, human engineers moved the entire solar system back to its rightful place among the stars. The sun, rejuvenated by the same technology that had once dimmed it, shone brighter than ever. Earth's surface, frozen for 500,000 years, bloomed again as the ice melted and life returned. In the restored cities of Earth, children of dozens of different species played together in parks where flowers from 100 worlds grew side by side. Their parents worked together to build a new kind of civilization, one based on cooperation rather than conquest. On a hill overlooking the rebuilt United Nations building, a memorial stood to honor all those who had been lost. It bore the names of every species the Council had destroyed and every human who had died defending Earth. But the inscription at its base looked not to the past, but to the future. "In memory of those who fell, in hope for those who rise." The Council's betrayal of Earth had cost them everything, but in trying to destroy humanity, they had created something far greater than they ever imagined. The price of their treachery was not just their own defeat, but the birth of a galaxy where such betrayal could never happen again.